Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing You Never Know in the 15-minute pool on ICC. And I decided to play the English in this game. This is YouNeverKnow19. Gonna check out his stats. I'll play G3 on move 2 as I usually do in this line. Good stats. Another player I've played in the pool who has a ton of games in here. Has played about 1,500 games. So this line is the reverse dragon. I'm gonna play knight c3. I'll just play it normal. Yeah, and now knight f3, attack his pawn. Then I will castle. Now if he goes bishop e7, so white has a lot of options in this position. A move I think is kind of interesting here is rook b1. So I'll try that. And the idea is just to try to fast track b4. b4 is a pawn thrust that I would very much like to achieve in this position. If you think about this as a Sicilian reverse, it's just like black and the Sicilian wanting to play a6 and b5. Likewise, white would love to get in b4 here. And hopefully get my pawn up to b5 and attack his knight, which is in turn defending his e5 pawn. So I think I've seen a few different replies to this rook b1. Black could just play a5 and try to shut down my idea entirely. That's the reactionary thing to do. Not necessarily bad, but that's one option. There's also this interesting move g5, intending to push g4 and kick my knight away. So he played a normal move, bishop e6, and it kind of begs the question, like, what happens at b4? Because if b4 and he takes with the bishop, I can play knight takes e5, and I'll be attacking c6, so trying to deflect that piece. So I'll do it. I'll go here. And I'm very curious how he'll respond. He plays a solid move, f6. Okay. And it would be consistent for me to follow up in the center. Just debating whether I want to play that move right away or if I want to play something in between. I probably should play it right away if I'm going to do it. So yeah, let's play b5. And after knight d4, I won't take his knight. I think I'll just play d3. Yeah, just d3. Now I feel like to some extent I've nailed his b7 pawn as a weakness, because with my pawn on b5, I believe he'll be less likely to play a6 or c6 in order to challenge it, and that means that this pawn may be sitting here somewhat exposed. Like if there's an exchange on f3, my bishop will get here and I'll start attacking b7. Okay, so now I could just develop my dark square bishop. I could play a4. Bishop d2 seems very normal. The thing I like about a4 is I might be able to play a quick a5. Wonder if that's worth it. Could also play knight d2. Yeah, knight d2 might be good here. Yeah, I kind of like knight d2. Let's do that. So this attacks his b7 pawn, and also I might be preparing the move e3. Now, a really common trap in this position, which you want to be aware of, is if he goes knight d5 to offer an exchange of one of my minor pieces, either my knight on c3 or my bishop on g2 for that knight there, I'll take with my bishop. It's very key that I take with my bishop. He'll take with his bishop, and then I can play e3. And assuming it doesn't happen in the game, I'll demonstrate this tactic after the game. But at that point, his knight would only have two squares to go to, either e6 or f5. If it goes to f5, I could play e4, and I'd be forking both the knight and the bishop. And if we were to go back to e6, I could play also e4, and his bishop would be trapped on d5. So knight d5 is a very big mistake here, but it's like a trap I've seen in various forms many times in this line. So there's actually a great book on the English by the Austrian Michal Marin. Look, and it's going to happen in this game, assuming I haven't miscalculated anything. But there's a great 3-part series by Quality Chess by Michal Marin, Romanian grandmaster, and he talks about this trap. That's where I first became aware of it. So yeah, the way it works is bishop takes d5, and he takes, and I'll play e3 next move. And it has to be with the bishop, because if I were to have taken with the knight and then done this e3 move, he could insert the move bishop takes g2. So this is what happens. So it's just sometimes you get traps like this out of the opening. And they most often happen when you've studied a line and you have some experience in it. So my opponent played a very natural move, knight d5. It seems to fit the profile of what black should be looking to do here, blocking the attack on b7 and exchanging off my good knight on c3, blocking my good bishop, but just happens to be an error. This can happen in the Sicilian too. So we'll see what he does, but this might be a short standard game. Let's hope I don't blow it after that long preamble, but I don't think I will. And the annoying part for him is, like, there's not even a way to effectively sacrifice the piece for more than a pawn, I think. Like, I don't think he's going to get 2 pawns out of this equation. I think at maximum he'll get 1. Yeah, I have a feeling that against this b4 move, or against rook b1 rather, on move 8, I think the move g5 might be the most challenging. It looks super weird, but g5 would be like a strike against my knight on f3, and I think it places me in a somewhat awkward position. Yeah, so now I have this move. So he is going to get 2 pawns. Okay, I spoke too soon. So after e4, I think he's going to take on a2, and then play queen takes d3 more than likely. So, yeah, he will get 2 pawns. I'll probably play queen b3 maybe against that. Seems like a good idea. Trade the queens. I don't think it's necessary to look for anything too much better than that. Yeah. I like that after the queen trade, my knight will come to b3 and it stops his move knight d4. So that's very convenient. This knight will hop back to c3 where it will protect the pawn and also maybe hop into d5. This pawn still has a cramping effect on his position. It's nice. I bet he'll play a6 because he wants to get rid of this pawn. Even though he would like to avoid exchanges if he could, being down in material. But it's too much of an annoyance. The only part of the board where he has any advantage is on the queen side, because he has a pawn majority here, 3-1. But if this pawn remains here, he can't do much. But a6 would make sense, because after I take, he can take with his rook, and he doesn't have to damage his pawn structure. So I'm anticipating a6. Yeah, and he plays it. So I can play knight c3 right away, or I can play take first and then knight c3. Don't know that it makes too much of a difference. Probably not. I'll probably take first. It just looks simpler. Just checking to see if I have any more of a problematic way to play. Yeah, I think this is fine. You always feel like in these positions that you've already done the dirty work, let's say, and you kind of deserve to win at this point, but that mindset of feeling like you deserve to win is a really dangerous one. So I want to keep playing here just like it's a normal game. Even though earlier I said I might be making this a short game because of the opening. But I have to treat this just like any other scenario. He can play c6. c6 is kind of annoying. It restricts my knight. If he can activate his b and c pawns, he stands a chance of being able to resist in this position. So, I want to keep my wits about me. Let's go bishop e3. We'll just develop. Now I have an eye towards playing rook fd1 and trying to invade down the d file. I'd love to get at b7 if I could. I am anticipating that he'll advance b5 at some point soon. So, yeah, credit to him for finding a good defense in a tough position. But I think I'm doing pretty well still. Okay, let's just go here. If this encourages him to trade rooks on d8, that's probably fine by me. The rook is kind of a pest on a3 for him. It means I can't stray too far with this rook. And he's x-raying both of my knights. But there's not a good way for him to take advantage of that, so it's fine. If rook d8, I can trade, and then I'll have to do something about this knight that's currently hanging. Or not hanging, but weakly defended only by my rook. I don't want my rook tied down to defending that knight. Incidentally, I remember a game of Gadakamsky's where he fell for this trap with colors reversed, I believe, in a Sicilian, I want to say. So this same trap, like he played a knight to the center, and his opponent played bishop takes, which it's kind of an unnatural move, bishop takes rather than knight takes way back there. Okay, so he played rook d8. I probably should take it. Any reason not to take? No, let's take.
Check.
See which way he takes. I predict he'll take with the bishop. And I kind of want to bring my king closer. But then again, I don't want his pawns to start running. What about f4? f4 is kind of interesting. f4 and maybe go f5. Is it premature to move those pawns? Maybe. I could play bishop a3 if I really want to back his rook off. Doesn't seem necessary, though. Bishop c5 does not work at all. He takes with his knight. I'm very tempted to play f4, but I might go king f1 just to get a little bit closer. King f1, let's say he plays b5. Do I care if he plays b4? Possibly not. Okay, I'll just play king f1. Get him a little bit closer. He needs his knight on e6. If it's knight's not on e6, he has big problems because I'll be looking to play knight c5 soon. Once I address this rook on the a3 square. His bishop is sort of a non-factor at the moment. He's going to have to making use of his rook, his knight, and his two pawns especially. Okay, so he's bringing his king up. Likewise, I think I wouldn't mind bringing my king up. Just checking to make sure I don't get hit by some unexpected tactics. Like king e2, knight d4, or something random like that. It's something I have to think about. No, I don't think it works for him. I'll just do this. So my calculation is if knight d4 check, I take with my knight, he takes with the pawn. I play rook takes b7 check. He makes a king move, let's say king e6. And then I think I can play knight b1, attacking his rook. So he just played b5. I want to get a little bit closer. And I feel like once I get my king to c2, then my rook is free. I can maybe bring my king all the way over to b2. And I'm on my way to consolidating this. And I want to make sure these pawns don't become connected any further than this. It's okay if this one goes to b4. I don't mind that. If this one gets to c5 or c4, something's probably gone wrong for me. I was just hesitant to advance f4 because I want to preserve my pawns. I'm worried like he might exchange and play bishop c7 or something. Maybe start attacking my ragged pawns. So I think I can more or less keep my center and kingside structure together and just try to bring my forces over to the queen side and push him back and slowly make progress. Bishop e7. So maybe he is trying to play b4 and then c5. I can play rook a1 if I want. I could actually have played rook... No, I can't play rook a1. My knight hangs. Never mind. King c2, b4. Let's say knight e2, c5. Yeah. Maybe now's a good time for f4. I feel I should continue bringing my king over, king c2. But I am concerned about king c2, b4. I move my knight, and then he plays c5. Just not quite sure about that line. Okay, I'm just going to do it. I think I see like a decent continuation if that happens. So I'll go b4, knight d1. And if c5, then probably knight b2. He can sink something into d4, his knight into d4 then. But I can take, and I'll have his pawns very well blockaded. Even though he might have 3 connected pawns. That's a little worrying. He just might have 3 connected pawns. But that's a risk I'll have to take. So if c5 comes, which I'm definitely predicting right now, I want to make sure he doesn't get to c4. So knight b2 is what I plan on playing. In a way, it feels like I haven't played this in the most accurate way possible, but I think I have everything under control. So I don't feel horrible about this situation. I mean, yeah, he can play knight d4 and get 3 connected passers, but they're all blockaded. They all will be blockaded. I have a moderate time advantage. Plays rook a2. So rook a1. For rook a1, does he have any tricks? I don't think so. King d3 is also possible. Rook a1, knight d4, I just take with the bishop. Rook a1, c4, I just take his rook. Yeah, there's no tricks. Pre-move this. That rook trade should help me because it makes it easier for me to coordinate. That was a pesky rook for many moves in a row. So now I plan to walk my king up to the center. I might even go king d3 and c4 and forego putting my knight on c4. Maybe I can bring this knight over to a4 and gang up on the c5 pawn. That c5 pawn is my next target after these rooks come off the board. He pretty much has to play this rook exchange. I don't think he should really be thinking right now. But the only other move is knight d4. Really? Okay. So he's going to play c4 and risk it all on the passed pawns. Yeah, this shouldn't work. But might be an interesting practical try. Yeah, I think just this move is good. Attack his c4 pawn. Knight d2 would have ran into c3 check with a fork, so I definitely didn't want to play that move. So now if c3 check, I'll probably play... I'm not quite sure which one's better. King c2 or king b3. At first I thought king b3, but maybe he goes bishop c5. That's pretty bad. Yeah, I think no matter what happens, I'm doing well. I'll just play this one. King c2, I could bring the knight back to b3, but I don't think it's necessary. My knight is actually bound for c6 now. I'm very surprised he sacked the exchange. But, I don't know. He might have recognized that the position was losing anyways. Maybe this looked more interesting.
Check.
Knight comes in. So I can just take it and then play, I don't know, something like Knight c6 should be good enough. Rook d1 also would be fine. Take, rook d1. Totally blockade his pawns. King c2 is also good. Just double checking to make sure his pawns do not become a runaway train. So if knight c6 and he goes d3, is that an issue? Knight c6, d3, knight takes b4. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm just winning there. But rook d1 might even be easier. Less counterplay. Yeah, rook d1. Completely blockade. And then if bishop c5, then knight c6. Those pawns are dropping. Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot he can do. Okay, bishop c5, yeah, and just knight c6 should do the trick. If king e6, intending knight takes d4 check, king e5, I will play f4 first, before taking the pawn on d4. Yeah, and he resigned. Okay, let's have a look. So this is the reverse dragon variation. And I tried to play it without playing the customary move d3. It's an interesting way to play it. So this rook b1 move. I don't know if I fully trust rook b1. It's just like a unique twist on the position. So b4. He plays a solid move f6. So my idea is to try to deflect his defender of e5. So if he were to take with the knight, I can play knight takes e5, and I'm attacking b7. And if he plays bishop takes b4, I can play knight takes e5 as well, deflecting his knight from defending his bishop. So here, and then f6, b5 here, d3. I feel like he should be okay here. I mean, if he wants to, maybe now is a better time to play knight d5 at a moment when I can't take with my bishop. Right, so like if take, he should be fine because I'm not trapping any of his pieces. I probably would have played bishop d2 in response to that, although he can take on c3 and then maybe grab a2. That's possible. Let's just check. What if knight d5 here? Computer says do this and then take on d4. And it gives a small advantage to white. Tiny advantage, bishop e4, that's kind of a weird move. Yeah, I suspect black is probably okay in this position. Moderate advantage, if any. So he did castle, and I played knight d2. Yeah, and this move is just very unfortunate for him. Probably should play rook b8. I think rook b8 is a good move. I see the computer also likes c6, blocking the bishop, decreasing its scope. If he does that, he has to maybe accept a wrecked pawn structure, although he can take with the rook. Oh, and rook c8 is interesting. Trying to capture on c3 if I were to take on b7. Okay, so knight d2, knight d5, yeah, and this is where I get to spring the trap. So as I was saying, it has to be with the bishop, because if I took with the knight instead, and then tried to execute this same trap, it works pretty well if he plays knight f5, but bishop takes g2 is possible. And then king takes, and the knight can escape. Also, yeah, he has queen d5 check, too. So bishop takes d5. And bishop takes back, and e3. And no matter which way he goes, either e6 or f5, I'm going to win a piece by playing e4. Seems like he made the best of this situation, and all I'm really going to check is my technique, whether he had a chance to get back in the game. I played queen b3 pretty quickly. This just felt like the right move. His queen is an aggressively placed piece. I want to get rid of it, exchange it if I can. And I'm hitting the knight on e6, and trades should benefit me. But it's possible that queen b3 is not the best move. I see the engine likes rook b3. Maybe because that will make it harder for him to move his queenside majority if I keep the queens on the board. Like, let's say queen d7 and then knight back to c3. Like, now a6 can't be as played as easily, because if take and rook takes, b7 is loose. So that's kind of a far-reaching consequence of me exchanging queens, is that a6 is kind of a nice move for him. Computer says don't even take his pawn or defend it, just play b6. That's interesting. I think I briefly considered this, but it didn't cross my mind that the d5 square is now a great outpost. I still don't think I would have gone for this, even if I knew the computer liked it, because it just doesn't seem necessary to give him a third pawn. So he's the one who's trying to claw his way back in the game. I think he would prefer if the position remains messy. And I'm sure he'd like to have an extra pawn, too. So here, bishop e3. You can see I'm not that much better for having won a piece with the trap early on. I'm not that much better. But
check.
I think I felt pretty well under control. f4, the computer's suggesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm just not sure if that's any better than what I did with king f1. I think it's okay. So here, king up. Yeah, and I just marched my king over. I think its proper place is on the queen side. I like bringing it over there quite a bit. Yep, now c5 and knight b2. Okay, so this looks like a good reorganizational idea, bringing the knight here and here. One tactical nuance I did mention is if he plays knight d4.
Check.
With the idea of take, and if bishop takes, going c5. Trying to get this to move so that he can win the knight. Yeah, I do have in-between stuff I can do, like take. And let's say king somewhere. Like I think I was saying this. And then this move, knight b1. That's a very nice move. Yeah. And then if rook check, I can block with my bishop or rook. So he's not winning a piece. And I'll be left with a completely won position. So he can't do that. And he did the right thing. I mean, he tried to activate his pawn majority. But it just seems like these pawns get bottled up too fast. Ah, okay, he could have played rook a3 maybe, but it doesn't help too much, huh? I can go knight c4 anyways and compel him to trade. Wouldn't this just work too? Take, knight c4. Maybe that makes it tougher.
Check.
Knight d4, take with the c pawn. Okay, the a3 pawn might be a little difficult to win. It's probably still winning for white though.
Check.
Yeah, so he took here, and now it's
check.
Just a matter of being careful.
Check.
Not letting him get these pawns coordinated any further. I feel like I said that a lot this game, but, you know, that's really the only thing I have to take care of. I'm up a piece. The position will win itself if I just put the brakes on his counterplay. So, yeah, knight c6, and he resigned. And if king e6, I was going to play f4. I think this would be a last accurate move, because if knight takes d4,
check.
He could get his king up to e5. It's still completely winning for white, but I'd prefer not to let him take this pawn after I move my knight. So, hope you guys enjoyed that game. One thing I'm checking real quick, I'm trying to find this Kamsky game I was referring to. I can't seem to find it. I'm looking for it off screen. I just pulled up chessgames.com in the analysis here, just to see if I could show you this example I was thinking of. I don't see it. I'm not sure it was Tivyakov versus Kamsky. Kamsky might have been playing someone else, but I'll look for it and see if I can post it in the comments. Well, thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that 15-minute game, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.